Hey, Anthony, thanks for your time. Uh, Wondering if you could expand a bit on your statement about Gio coming into camp and what your conversations were like with him and whether you went to the Leadership Council for some input as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Stephen. Yeah, I mean, look, similar to what I put in the statement, we had the issue at the World Cup that we dealt with internally, we dealt with as a group. There was a really positive response from Gio after that. And then the World Cup ended. And beyond that, it became a very, very complex situation that, looking at it, we see separate from Gio, even though he's impacted by it. And from then it's been a case of visiting him in Germany. I went over to see him a little while ago. We had a good meeting. And then we've spoken a few times since. I spoke to him this week, and he's in a good place. He's determined to come back in and do well and help the team.
Next will be Brian Strauss from Sports Illustrated.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, Anthony. Following up on Steve's question and your conversations with Gio, I mean, you guys have been clear, the players have been clear that you guys sort of considered this a settled matter, right? That it was settled in Qatar. But in your conversations with him, did he have concerns about reactions within the team, reactions from the public, criticism, feeling welcome, feeling included? Did he express any reservations to you about how sort of this would go as he tried to reintegrate back with the group?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Brian. Honestly, I never felt any sort of resistance to coming back. Obviously, this is a young guy who has been through a lot. The conversations initially were first of all, being a young man overseas, having gone through all of this, the conversation or the objective, first of all, just to see how he was on a human level. And yeah, I mean, without going into detail of our conversation, I think for anyone to go through that is going to be a challenge, but he seems to have, be in a good place, in the sense that I see that he is firmly focused on his soccer, his playing, and coming back into camp. Speaking to him this week, there was no hesitation from him about coming in. He's determined to come in and do well. He's a good guy, a talented player, and as far as I'm concerned, our conversations have been good, and he's looking forward to coming back in.
Next will be Paul Tenorio from The Athletic.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Anthony. The other big news, obviously, is that Tyler Adams is not going to be here due to injury. It seems like it's a kind of a big opportunity, though, in trying to identify who will be the main backup for Tyler in this cycle. Kellen obviously could still be that guy, played that role last cycle. But what do you like about the options in this camp, Cardoso and Alan Senora? And also, I wonder if you could go into a little bit about the forward depth chart as well and why you made those choices. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. It's good to see you again. Yeah, look, it's unfortunate about Tyler. He is such an important player to us. Our captain, and did an incredible job at the World Cup and improving every time we see him in the Premier League. So, first of all, really pleased about his development and what he's doing in his career. So it was disappointing news that we can't have him. However, it does open up an opportunity for someone else, to back him up, to come in and have a go at that position. I think we've got a couple of options in there that we feel confident in these games we're playing, that we have the quality to be able to, do what we need to do and get what we need out of that position in these two games. So yeah, we're pleased with who's coming in. And then on the forward side of it, we've obviously not seen Ricardo or Daryl for some time. Daryl is someone who he had an unfortunate time with injury, a key part of the time in the last campaign. But what he's done in the championship, firstly with Barnsley, I think when he went there, they were fighting relegation, and he had a massive part to play in scoring goals and getting them up to then pushing for playoffs. So he's done really well. And then obviously his move to West Brom, he had an injury, but again, he's doing well. Myself, my assistant, BJ Callahan, and a few other of our staff have been over to see these guys live. We've seen them a few times now. Same with Ricardo. And yeah, we're really pleased they're both coming in. They've been away for a while, and we really believe that these two guys can help us in this camp.
Thanks. We'll go to Ron Blum from the Associated Press.
Hi, Anthony. Thanks for doing this. Did you, in your time on the coaching staff, have any contact with Claudio and Danielle in their lobbying attempts? And as you go forward, how do you convince the fan base that if you played him, you didn't do it for fear that the parents go after you, or if you don't play him, that it's in response to what's occurred?
Yeah, Ron, it's a really fair question, and one that I've not even thought about, which probably answers your question. I have not thought once that it's just not come into my thinking at all, to answer your question.
And did you have any contact with the parents during your time on the coaching staff?
No, I didn't. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks. And we'll go to Jeff Carlisle from ESPN FC.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, Anthony. I wanted to ask about the center backs. Obviously, there's a lot of competition there, but no Chris Richards, no Cameron Carter-Vickers, no Eric Palmer-Brown. Just wondering what the decision-making process was like in terms of those guys, and no Walker Zimmerman as well. So, how did you go about making those choices?
Yeah, Jeff, it's a good question, and it's an interesting one because we have a lot of programming coming up between now and the summer. We obviously have these two games that we have to win. We have a game against Mexico in April, and then we have Nations League, and then immediately after that we have Gold Cup. So for us to be able to really plan this out and have strong teams in all of these competitions, we have decided to select the team a certain way for these next few camps coming up. The other side of it is it's a balancing act between when we get to the summer, the overseas players are going to need a break, and obviously with some of our domestic players, it's a slight challenge for those guys because they potentially are going to be missing league matches with their clubs. So we have decided to select for this camp a predominantly European-based squad. We did this in 2021. It worked very well, where we obviously won both tournaments, and we more or less did it with 2 separate squads. So we were comfortable with that. We've done it before. And also it made sense in terms of trying to work with clubs and not overloading the players. The last part around Miles, because obviously he is the exception to the sort of select the roster, the filter for this roster. He's someone that has been out for a long time. He had a terrible injury. You know, it was such a shame. We all felt terribly for him, because he's just a really, really good guy, good human being, and a really, really important player. So for him to miss that much soccer and international soccer, and also the World Cup, was very tough for him. So first of all, we just want to get him back in and see him and work with him and reintegrate him back into the squad. And then the other side of that is, you know, we have decided, and we've spoken to the club, and we know the fact that Miles is only just returning from a very serious injury. And I think we believe it's important for him to try as best as possible to play 1 game a week, rather than really overload him with 2 games. So that way we felt this camp was more suited to the April camp, where the April camp's going to be 3 games in 7 days. They play MLS at the weekend. They come into us on the Sunday night after their game, Saturday and Sunday, come in, they have train Monday, Tuesday, recover Monday, light session Tuesday, and then play Wednesday. And then they go back to their clubs Thursday to then play on Sunday. So that situation may not be ideal for Miles. So that's why we've got him in this camp, so we can start working with him again.
Our next question comes from Ariana Figuera.
Thank you, Michael. Coach Ariana from Telemundo. Obviously, Alex Zendejas gets the call, a player who just recently committed to the U.S. men's national soccer team. He had the option to play for Mexico as well. So I wanted to ask you about some of those conversations and the efforts that the team needs to do to secure a player of his characteristics, obviously a player that has the ability to play not only a winger, but also midfield positions. So to be versatile, basically. Just what can you tell me about the efforts that were done, and how good do you feel to have a player of his characteristics, what he brings to the table for the Stars and Stripes?
Yeah, thanks, Ariana. I think firstly, we're really pleased that he's decided to come to us. This is a player who we've been watching for a while. He is an exciting player. He's a slightly different type of profile of winger that we have. I love his mentality. I love his quality, but I really love, he has a real aggressive way of playing, an intense way of playing. He's a winner. He's a tough player. And he's going to help us be a better team. So we're pleased he's agreed to come and join us. And then I would say, look, there's been work done in the past. And then since January, prior to January, we've had several conversations. His club have been amazing in allowing us to get him in the January camp, because they didn't have to. So really, really grateful to the club for allowing that situation to happen. And he came into camp, and not only did he show his quality, but the other side of it, he showed that this is just a really good guy, good for the group, good personality, always upbeat, positive. I think he's going to be a really good addition to the squad.
We'll go to Jonathan Tannenwald from the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks, Anthony, for the time. Zach Steffen is back with you all as well. And I wonder, I know you were over there, BJ was over there. I wonder what the conversations have been with him and what the dynamic of this is going to be like, given that from the outside, at least it seemed that one of the reasons why he didn't go to Qatar is when you knew he wasn't going to be the starter. So what has that been like, and what do you expect it to be like now?
Yeah, without going into the past, we've had obviously BJ's been over there. He's had a really good season so far with Middlesbrough. He's playing very well, and it appears that he's really enjoying playing as well. And he's a top goalkeeper, and we're delighted that he's coming back in. So yeah, there's been conversations. BJ's met him whilst he's over there. You know, he's in a good place, and like, we don't see any issues with him coming back in. You know, it's one of those where we always say, like, you know, just because a player's not been picked for a window or two, it doesn't mean the journey's over for the national team. And this happens throughout every cycle. And the fact he's coming back in is a good thing for the group. And I know he's looking forward to coming in.
Next will be Kyle Bond.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time. Just wanted to ask you, Coach, about Gaga Slonina. I know, you know, he's a young player at a new club, a big club in Europe. But you know, having been around in January, and you know, being someone I know folks are excited about, what is in front of him in terms of breaking into a squad down the road? Obviously, you know, we're talking about another goalkeeper who has made his way back in, and saying that the journey's not over. I think for him, the journey's just getting started. I'm curious for your thoughts on him and what he needs to do.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. And I would agree with you. This player is a top talent, and he has a really big future ahead of him. I think with Gaga, we want to get him in as much as possible. And I think the programming we have coming up, I mean, it's a lot. We have a lot of programming. I can see there being opportunity for him in there. Right now, this is obviously, these are must-win games. And the keepers that we've selected are all playing first team soccer, you know, league matches, real matches where there's a consequence on the result. So we're pleased with what we have coming into camp now. In fact, we have the luxury of having 3 really good keepers coming in. And then for Gaga, he's one he's going to get his opportunities. And as you said, he's a really high talent, and with a promising future ahead of him.
We'll go to Brian Schroeder from American Soccer Now.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Anthony. I want to ask you about 2 players, one who's on the team, one who's not. First of all, Brian Reynolds made the team. I know you guys were recently scouting him. It seems like he's had a big season in Belgium. I know it's competitive at right back, but I'm wondering if you could shine some light as to the progress and what you've seen from him in scouting him. And then Kevin Paredes has made an impact now, mostly off the bench, but still getting regular Bundesliga minutes. Was he under consideration, or are you guys considering him more for the U20s for the time being? Just wondering what the timeline is with him, because he's made some big steps as a teenage player.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Firstly, on Brian Reynolds, he's really impressed us, because you know, it's not easy for these. I think I mentioned this before. It's really not easy for these younger players to go overseas and in different parts of Europe, different parts of the world, and integrate them first into the culture and into a new team, and then to perform. it's not easy, and some get left out. They have to move to another club. They go on loan. So it's not an easy pathway. One thing we've been really impressed with Brian with is we're seeing someone who is growing in confidence. He's not only growing in confidence, but his team are doing well. And he's a significant part of the reason they're doing well. And what we're seeing from him, which we really like, going forward, he's a threat. Every game we watch, you're looking at it thinking, opposing teams now have to, really scout this guy and figure out how to defend against him, because very good going forward, very, he's attack minded. He's powerful when he runs forward. We see a lot. He gets the ball, he plays the ball forward, and then he runs forward, and he can go inside, outside, and he likes getting in the box. He has good physicality and he has good quality. So he's been doing really well. And we're pleased he's coming into camp with us. With Kevin's the same. Look, he was right on the edge. We've been watching him closely, and look, if he keeps doing what he's doing, he's going to get an opportunity. He's doing really, really well. One thing I would say is just the guys we've brought in ahead, maybe just they've got more minutes, they've got a little bit more experience, playing more consistently, starting games, in terms of Anthony Robinson. We're looking at Joe Scally over there as well. I mean, so Kevin's right there. He's a really, really interesting player. We value him highly. He's right on the edge. And again, he's one where I can see, with the amount of programming we have coming up and how we're going to have to balance the squad, he'll get an opportunity for sure.
Next will be Felipe Cardenas from The Athletic.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, Anthony. Question. You've given a lot of context on perhaps why a player like Brandon Vasquez would not be chosen for this camp, but I am curious where you see him right now within the striker depth chart. He performed well for you against Serbia. Where is he right now within just that group of players currently?
Yeah, Felipe, I really like him. He did a really good job in January. Scored a good goal in the first game. Really unlucky not to get the winner in the second game with that free kick at the end. But he offers us something different. We value him highly. I spoke to him a few days ago just to share the makeup of these squads and how we're planning this. And I assured him that he's certainly up until the Gold Cup, he's a really, really important player to us, and he's going to get opportunities. But yeah, really like him as a player, like him as a character. And I felt it was important to reach out to him this week and just share where we see him, and just also to remind him how well we thought he did in January. And yeah, he's quickly becoming an important person in our squad.
Next, we'll go to Donald Wine.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, Anthony. Good to have you on here, and thanks for your time. I want to talk about two forwards, or ask you about two forwards that made the roster. The first, Taylor Booth, if I'm correct, it's his first call up for a senior national team. Talk to me about what you've seen with him at Utrecht and just kind of how he fits into the role. And the second one is Ricardo Pepi, him returning to the roster. We know he's expressed his disappointment at being left off the World Cup roster. What was that conversation like with him about working him back into the fold for this particular roster?
Donald, apologies. Can you repeat the first part of the question, please?
Yeah, so hang on one second, Don. Anthony, he was asking about Taylor Booth.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, I was curious. I was just because he's been in with us before. He's been in the January camp before. So we've got to work with him. I obviously got to know him when I was with the under-20s. We had a large part of the pandemic where we were doing a bunch of stuff for the 20s and, sessions, meetings and, stuff to help with mindset. So there was a lot of times I had a lot of interactions with him and followed him closely as a player. And all I'll say with Taylor is he's really done well this season. I like how his game is developing, and he is, playing at a decent level and doing a really good job in his team. So we feel that he has some really good attributes that can come in and help this team. And one thing I do love about him is he's got a great mentality. He's another way. He's got a tough mentality. He's aggressive. He plays with intensity. And I really, really like that. So we're pleased he's coming into camp. And with Ricardo, Ricardo, I understand the disappointment that he had missing out on the World Cup. I can't imagine what that must have felt like for him, for a young player to go through that. Look, he's someone that we value. Like he did an amazing job for us in the last cycle. Went overseas, and again, I would say this for a lot of the young players going over there. It's not easy, and I think slowly now he is really finding form, finding confidence, and he's been doing well. So we're looking forward to him coming back in camp and reintegrating him into the squad. He's a great guy. He's a good person. I know he loves playing for the national team. So it's good that he's coming back in.
And just for clarity purposes, Taylor Booth's appearance in the senior team camp was December of 2021. We'll continue with Tom Bogert from MLSsoccer.com.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, Anthony, thanks for taking the time to kind of continue on the dual national thread with Zendejas committing his future this week. I wanted to see if you guys have had any communication with Flair and Belugan that you can kind of talk about.
Yeah, I think, look, I might have said this in the last time we spoke. I mean, and thanks for the question, Tom. My focus has been on two things. Firstly, given this context, it's been around the short term. We're focused on the next game, the next camp. And then the other side that we're focused on is the long term. And that's why it's been really important, as you said, to make sure we're doing all we can to engage with, and if there are any dual nationals out there that can help the team, we need to move forward and connect and engage and get these guys, and see what they want to do and try and encourage them and show them what we're doing, and hopefully get guys to come and commit to us. So Alejandro was one that went really, really well. Really pleased with Alejandro's participation in January, and then we've had several conversations since. He's a great guy. I know he's going to be great for the group as well. Just the culture of the group, not only on the field but off the field, he's going to be a good addition. With Flo, all I'll say, Tom, is that there is open dialogue with him and his team, and that dialogue is continuing, and that's, all I can say on that one.
We will take a couple more questions and continue with Ryan Talmadge from goal.com.
Thank you, Michael. And hey, Anthony. I wanted to ask about Christian Pulisic, obviously coming back recently from injury, having a few months off and just now kind of starting to get back going. How important is it for you to have him in this camp, for him as he gets fit, and also for the guys? I think he's your most capped player. And also, is there any sort of restrictions or fitness concerns once you kind of get him in?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. We're currently in communication with the club. We want to make sure that the players that are returning from injury and have limited minutes coming in, we just want to make sure with in partnership with the clubs that we do the right thing for the player. And so that's the same thing with Christian. So we'll get all that information before we get into camp. That's currently, those conversations are happening right now. And I will, and then when we have that information, we will make sure that we make the best possible decision we can in playing him in terms of minutes, in which game he starts, and how we use him. The fact that he's coming in is huge for the group. Christian is, as we all know, he's one of our top players. And all I can say about Christian as well as a person, this is a guy that deeply cares about the national team. Having been with the team now for 3 years or so for this last cycle, and I went over to England recently and went and met up with him. I think one thing I've just seen over this time is firstly a young man who's maturing every time, getting stronger mentality. But then his approach to the national team is I think it's everything you would want from a top player like Christian, someone that really believes in the national team, wants soccer to grow in this country, wants to inspire young kids in this country, and wants our team to be a serious contender at the international level. That much I can say about him, and so we're really fortunate that he's coming back in, because he's a influential and an inspiring person to many players around him.
Next is John Lupo from Vavel.
Thank you, Michael. Anthony, Austin Trusty got his first call up in defense. I imagine with Walker Zimmerman not being on the roster, that may have been a factor. Why? But just talk about what your expectations are for him and what you like about his game that led you to calling him up.
Yeah, thanks, John. He is someone that he's been doing really well. Like, he went overseas. We've seen him several times live now. I went to see him. My assistant BJ Callahan went to see him. I went to see him in a big derby match in England, which I know they're really the West Brom Birmingham games are an intense game, an aggressive game. For someone like Austin to go, I don't know, I've said this a few times, but to go overseas and play in a league like the Championship, which is it's relentless. It's just game after game, and the games are a fight. They're tough, intense. It's like the survival of the fittest. You have to deal with aggressive centre forwards. A lot of direct play. You're being asked to defend a lot. And what he's done really well is, firstly, he's gone and become one of the most important players in their team. Just me going there and spending time with the club and meeting people around the club on the day of the game. Everyone from the sporting director to the tea lady to everyone in the club came up to me and absolutely loved Austin. The type of person he is off the field, around the club. He's completely embraced the club. And then the other thing is, not only is he playing well and putting in really, really solid performances, but, some things you don't always see on the broadcast is, which I was really pleasantly surprised was, he's visibly looks like a leader on the field, and he's organizing the back four and he's organizing the winger in front of him, and he's very, very vocal with players around him, and players respect him, responding in the right way. I was shocked. I was really, really surprised, pleasantly surprised, and has an amazing connection with the fans. The fans love him, so he's doing really, really well over there. And he may feel a little bit hard done by that he hasn't been brought in the past. But what he's done, he's got his head down and he's put in big performances, consistent performances, and he deserves to be in this camp. So yeah, we're looking forward to working with him in this camp.
And again, for clarification purposes, Trusty did come in for one senior team camp in January of 2022. Our last question goes to who else but Andrew Jones.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Anthony, for this time, and really pleasure to talk to you. Wanted to ask you about Serginho Dest, with him overcoming his calf injury, as well as seeing Tim Weah and how he's done with Lille so well at left back. And what has been the thing that you've learned the most over your trip in Europe that you had the pleasure of getting further information on? Thanks. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, look, I think Serginho he had a very good World Cup. And he's obviously having a tough time in terms of not playing, but my conversations with him have been really, really positive. Like, he's very, very enthusiastic about coming in, wants to come in and help the team. So he's been really positive about coming in, and we're glad. I mean, he's a top player. It's unfortunate he's not playing at the moment, but he's someone that, we've been keeping across what he's doing at training and the other work that he's been doing. He's a talented player, and we're glad he's coming in, and we're glad that where he's at in terms of mentality. He's really, really excited to come back in. The trip to Europe was really good. I mean, it's I think we've done it a handful of times. I really encourage and believe it's something we need, we should do more of. We've done it, many times, in the last cycle. But going over there, what it does, first of all, like I shared with Austin Trusty's story at the game, you see things that you don't see on the broadcast that are really important bits of information around how the player's doing. The other side of that is you straight away, you see the contrast in levels of different leagues. So if you go and watch a game in Holland, you go and watch a game in Scotland, you go and watch a game in England, you go and watch a game in the Championship, you go to Belgium, then you come back, watch a game in MLS. What you do over this in your travels is you clearly see a contrast in levels, in styles, and it gives you an appreciation of what the players are doing, what their lives are like, what the pressure is they're under, and then the last part of it is it's just important to go and connect with the players and let them know that we care how they're doing, and also let them know that we're watching them live, and making sure that those guys over there, that they know that we're not just fully focused on MLS. We want them to know that we're over there doing what's right by them as well.